Is there anybody from joining online?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Please use your microphones only when you speak. Shut them off, otherwise we get some horrible squeaking noises.
Sorry, I just realised I should probably have started off the election of the Chair. Do we have any nominations for Chair of the meeting?
Can I propose Councillor Bidwell as the Chair?
I'll second that.
Therefore, Councillor Bidwell, you are elected Chair of the meeting. I'll pass over to you.
Apologies, a bit ahead of myself there. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the licensing panel. I'm Councillor Bidwell, Chair of the panel today to consider the application for Ascot Takeaway to Warren Row, Ascot. I would like to start by asking everyone to introduce themselves, starting with panel members.
Okay, I'm Councillor Kath Thompson, Councillor for Hamworth and Burchill.
Councillor Nick Allen, Councillor for Owlsmore and College Town.
Councillor Bidwell, Chair.
Hi, my name's Jamie Beardsmore. I'm clerk to the meeting. I'm with the panel throughout, and I will be the person that writes the decision letter that will go out within 2 working days from today.
Sorry, I'm Donald Adams, legal advisor to the panel. My job is to assist with legal and procedural advice and to assist with any points of clarification that may arise.
Thank you.
Emily Reader, resident.
Sunil Chanda, residents.
Riley Timney, licensing officer.
Nicolina Reynolds, licensing officer.
Sab Polmadan, applicant.
I'm Patrick Burt from P&B Licensing and I'm representing SubPal today.
Thank you. Okay, item 2 on the agenda is a standard item relating to the declarations of interest. Would members of the panel please confirm they have no disclosable pecuniary or affected interest in the application before us this afternoon? Councillor Allen.
Confirmed, I have no disclosable pecuniary interest in the business this afternoon.
Confirm I have no interest in businesses.
And I also confirm that I have no interest. No interest or pecuniary interest in the matter before us. Not no interest in this matter that we are here today for. Thank you. Okay. Item 3 sets out the procedure that must be followed for hearings considered by licensing panels. For the purpose of today's meeting, I will quickly remind everyone for the order which will follow today. First, I will ask the licensing officer, Riley Timney, to present his report in respect of this application. Everyone will then have the opportunity to ask questions of the licensing officer. Secondly, we will consider the objector's case and ask any questions we may have. Finally, I will ask the applicant to present their case for why the application should be granted. There will be an opportunity to ask questions of all participants. However, all questions must be asked through the chair and there must be no cross-examinations. Before we finish, we will confirm that the applicant and objectors have both said everything that they wish to in respect of this application. At this point, the panel will leave the room and the panel will make their decision in private. At this point, you are welcome to leave, or if you want to hear the decision, you may stay for the outcome. The panel's decision will also be communicated in writing to all parties within 2 working days and published on the Council's website, as we have already heard. Any questions so far? No. The purpose of this item is to determine an application for a new premises licence for Ascot Takeaway to Warren Road, Ascot. Before we begin, I must ask whether anyone feels that there is a reason for an adjournment in this case. Okay. No. Mr. Timney, can you confirm that the formal requirements in respect to this matter have been complied with?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. If we are all ready, I will ask Mr. Timney, the Public Protection Partnerships Licensing Officer, to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. My name is Riley Timney, and I'm a licensing officer with the Public Protection Partnership, and my role here is to introduce the application. On the 28th of February 2025, an application was received from PMB Licensing, acting as an agent for Mr. Satpal Singh Madhan, for a new premises licence under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003. The application relates to a premises located at 2 Warren Row, Ascot, Bracknell Forest, SL5 8HN. A number of maps and a photograph, which were put together by the Licensing Authority, have been provided to members. This is included in the agenda pack and is referenced as Appendix 5. The application has been recorded on the licensing database under reference number 26628. The application was validated on the 28th of February 2025 with a consultation period running from the 1st of March 2025 until the 28th of March 2025. The responsible authorities were notified via of the consultation period on the 28th of February 2025. The application was advertised in accordance with the Act, with the relevant blue notices being displayed at the premises. A notice of the application was advertised in the Bracknell News on the 12th of March 2025. A copy of the application is attached as Appendix 1. A copy of the premises plan is attached as Appendix 2. A copy of the Designated Premises Supervisor, DPS, details are attached as Appendix 3. The application seeks to obtain the following licensable activities: supply of alcohol Monday to Saturday from 11 a.m. until 10:30 p.m. for consumption on and off the premises. Sunday 11 a.m. through till 9 p.m. for consumption on and off the premises. No non-standard timings have been applied for. The premises is located in Warren Row, Ascot, Bracknell Forest. The premises is part of a parade of 6 commercial units. There is a premises next door to the applied for premises which is licensed to sell alcohol for consumption off the premises. Also on the parade of units are a charity shop, dental practice, a dry cleaning service and a cafe. A total of 4 representations were received from members of the public. These representations were made in the belief that granting of this new premises licence would undermine the 4 licensing objectives. For reference, the 4 licensing objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, public safety and the protection of children from harm. These representations that have been made are mainly in relation to public nuisance, crime and disorder and the protection of children from harm, and these representations are attached as Appendix 4A through D. No representations have been made by any of the responsible authorities. As relevant representations were made, members must determine this application. Members must consider all representations, both written and oral, with due regard of the licensing objectives and decide whether the application for a premises licence should be granted or rejected. If members are minded to include any additional conditions other than those offered up by the applicant, they will need to provide their reasons for doing so in the decision notice. Licensing authority should only impose conditions which are necessary and proportionate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. In addition to this, it was stated that any condition attached to the licence should be enforceable. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, members of the panel, are there any questions you'd like to ask of Mr. Timney? Councillor Allen?
Yeah, we were provided with a set of conditions that had been, has these been accepted by the applicant? Because you just said that the conditions need to be accepted by the applicant, and there's quite a 5 pages of them. Have these been agreed with the applicant, or are they separate?
Are these the title conditions for Ascot takeaway? Yeah, just at the top. Yes, these were agreed with the applicant as far if they would like to confirm. I don't know if they can speak now, but if you'd like them
They
to.
can do it later on.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Thompson, any questions for Mr. Timney?
Yeah, regarding the conditions, how will it be monitored that they are complying with those conditions?
Thank you, Councillor. So we carry out inspections on all of our licensed premises. The main reason behind the inspections are to ensure compliance. If we have concerns over a premises, then we may visit them more frequently. This could be because we receive complaints, could be we receive intelligence from responsible authorities. So by way of inspection, obviously then we do have, if a licence is granted to a premises, we then do have the ability to look at measures that are put in place, so such as reviews and things like that.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Does that apply also to other facilities that sell alcohol? If so, does that mean that Rectory Row has been inspected before for the way that the alcohol has been sold from the off licence there?
I don't know if we can talk about another premises that isn't this one.
I
that
would say
we're-
not. It's not the subject of this hearing.
Okay, apologies.
Certainly ask in respect to the application.
What I can say is that all premises that hold a premises, license, are inspected. We have a sort of schedule that's set out for that.
Yeah, that was really the essence of what I was asking. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Burke, are there any points of clarification or questions you would like to ask Mr. Timney?
No, I'm fine with what's been said. Thank you.
Okay. So, objectors, are there any points of clarifications or questions you would like to ask of the licensing officer?
I just would like to understand the way that the blue notice went up. What is the actual readership of the newspaper that it was published in? And also, what about those not using the shop who actively boycott using the shop, who would actually object to this? We only found out a few days before we could object, which is probably why you got so few, because people are unhappy with it.
Thank you. I'm just going to have a look on our system now to see if I've got a copy of the blue notice here. It's set out in the Licensing Act how it's statutory as to how an application should be advertised. So that's why it has to go into a newspaper and notices are put in there. Same for it being displayed at a premises. So it has to be displayed at the premises that the licence has been applied for. Whilst I appreciate and take on board what you've said there, where if people are not using that premises, I do understand obviously it may be difficult then for them to become made aware of it, but that unfortunately that is just what's followed in the Act, is how it's been advertised.
Any other questions?
Sorry,
Next.
can you turn on your mic just there?
Sorry, do we get to speak our concerns overall? Not yet. Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you wait the next item.
Oh, right.
is-
At the moment, it's just whether you have any questions.
Oh, right, to the panel. Okay, right. Yeah, sure. As my neighbours just said, obviously, I was only made. I was only made aware by another neighbour who actually does go to the shop. Otherwise, I would have been oblivious to it. And for the licensee panel to just say, it's sod's law, you take it. The neighbours should just, obviously, the neighbours take it as it is.
Yeah, I think that this is for the discussion later. I mean, the
that was to
process
do
has
with
been explained.
the board.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
But, quickly moving on, the panel will now consider the representation of those who have made objections. Objectors, we have all received and read your objectors, that's you guys. We have received and read your written representations carefully. Please will you tell us why you feel this application should be refused?
I'm going to read it. So I'm strongly objecting to the application for the premise license of Ascot Takeaway 2 Warren Row. As a resident living directly opposite the premises, I'm deeply concerned about the impact this license will have on my family and the wider community. My objections are based on the 4 licensing objectives and additional concerns regarding the planning process and communication. The first one is the prevention of public nuisance. I'm already forced to regularly clean up litter from the shop next door, owned by the same applicant. My front garden is often strewn with discarded vapes, beer cans, energy drink bottles, and food wrappers. I have to explain to my young children where this waste comes from, which is distressing and inappropriate. Granting another alcohol license will only increase this problem. The prevention of crime and disorder. Just yesterday, I was coming home with my young children who are 4 and 6. There was a man sitting on the bench opposite, clearly completely intoxicated. It was 5 o'clock. He had a bag of beer from the shop, sitting there drinking. He sat opposite the bench in the house, and he just stared at me and my children. It was incredibly intimidating. We felt unsafe. My daughter was very upset. This is not an isolated incident. Groups of intoxicated individuals frequently gather outside the shop, creating an atmosphere of unease. The applicant does not demonstrate responsible management of their current license, and I have no confidence that a second license will be handled any better. Public safety. There's already significant noise and disruption from the row of shops, particularly after 9 p.m. My son, who is 4, is regularly woken up by shouting and swearing. He wakes up frightened, believing there is danger outside. The proposed opening hours until 11 p.m. 6 days a week are excessive, and this will only worsen this. As a full-time working mother, I'm horrified at the thought of enduring this every night. Protection of children from harm. This is a family-oriented residential area. My children are exposed to antisocial behaviour by intoxicated individuals. Adding a licensed takeaway will increase their exposure to harm. The applicant's existing premises already contribute to this issue, and I fear for my children's safety and well-being. Misrepresentation of the business. The application is for a takeaway, yet there is now 12 seats and the mention of a smoking area, despite no outdoor space being owned by the premises. This is no longer a takeaway. This is a restaurant with bar service. This misrepresentation may have influenced the lack of objections from responsible authorities. Traffic and road safety. Traffic is a serious issue. I recently witnessed a hospital transport bus collide with a car at the corner of Warren Road. Cars frequently speed around the area to collect parcels or food. It's only a matter of time before someone is seriously injured. Increased traffic from a license taken will heighten this risk. The planning process concerned. When we purchased our home in October 2024, we checked the planning portal and saw the application for a takeaway reference number 22-000857-FU was marked as refused. This status remains visible today. We're misled into believing this takeaway would not go ahead. It was only later we discovered that it had been approved on appeal. This misrepresentation has upset our family, who moved here to raise our children in a quiet and safe environment. The council communication. I was disturbed by the tone of an email I received from the licensing officer. The email implied that if the license is not granted, the applicant could simply allow customers to bring their own alcohol with no oversight or conditions. This felt threatening and dismissive of legitimate concerns raised by local residents. I also questioned whether it was appropriate for my personal contact details to be shared with all representation. My concerns regarding proposed licensing conditions. While the application has proposed a number of conditions intended to mitigate the impact of alcohol sales, I do not believe these go far enough to address real-world issues already experienced by the residents. In fact, the level of detail and control proposed in these conditions suggests that the premises will operate more like a licensed restaurant or bar than a simple takeaway. These concerns conclude alcohol with meals only. While alcohol is to be served with meals only, this does not prevent patrons from lingering out drinking excessively outside or causing disruption outside the premises. Hourly litter checks. This is insufficient. Litter from the application's existing premises is already a persistent problem. The hourly checks will not prevent waste from accumulating in residents' gardens or shared spaces. CCTV and incident logs. These are reactive measures. They do not prevent antisocial behaviour or intimidation. They place both the burden on enforcement and overstretched authorities. Training and Challenge 25. While commendable, these measures are only effective if rigorously enforced. Given the application's poor track record with the existing premises, I have little confidence in their implementation. The proposed conditions, while detailed, do not address the fundamental issue. This is a residential area, and the introduction of a licensed premises with extended hours will inevitably lead to increased noise, disruption, and fear among residents, especially families like mine with some young children. Bracknell Forest approved the takeaway despite over 150 objections from local residents. It is clear that the voices of the community are being ignored in favour of commercial interests. I urge the panel to consider the real lived experience of residents like myself and reject the application in the interest of public safety, community well-being, and protection of children. I ask you all to consider, when has alcohol made a bad situation better? That's all.
Thank you for that. Any panel members want to ask any questions? Starting with the councillors.
Yeah, you were saying that the takeaway was granted on appeal. Appeal from who? Was it the Magistrates' Court?
Would you like? Planning consent was granted for a takeaway with seating for diners to eat inside. Before we even submitted an application for a premises licence, he's had planning consent approved for a takeaway with facilities for people to sit and eat inside. That's already been approved.
Just in answer to the question, was that granted on appeal by the Planning Inspectorate?
Yes.
that's a fundamental thing that, in which case, if that was the planning inspectorate granted it on appeal, that was not the council. The council refused this, and it was the national planning inspector who decided that that it should be granted. So actually, it's not the council that's the issue here in terms of the fact that we're granted on the takeover. I just want to clarify that. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Any questions from you,
No
Kath?
further questions at this time.
I just wanted to clarify, your main objection is that if application is granted, that the antisocial behaviour that's already happening will get worse. Yeah. Okay. Any other members would like to ask any questions? Okay. If there are no further questions from the panel, Mr. Burke, do you have any questions of the objector's case? I know I've already asked this, but this is your
I
spot.
haven't got any objections, but obviously I'm going to state in my some facts in my
Yeah, we'll wait to yeah, okay. And Mr. Timney, any further questions from yourself?
No, nothing from me, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If we're ready to move on, Mr. Burke.
The other objector.
got another objection.
No, I thought you were speaking. I do apologise. I thought one objector was speaking for both of you, but if you want to have your say, you can have it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Board. I'd like to express my concerns regarding the current classification of premises in question, which inevitably was designated as a takeaway based on the first application. It no longer is functioning in that capacity with this licensing application. Customers are not merely collecting drinks or food and leaving. They'll be travelling to the premises, consuming alcohol either before or after, and leaving the premises. It's not a TARDIS. You don't appear in the shop and you don't disappear. It always spills out into the community. Customers, the activities being carried out are more like my colleague said, my neighbour said, is a drinking venue, a bar, a restaurant, not a simple takeaway. I urge the appropriate authorities to review the classification of this establishment as its compliance with local planning and licensing regulations, and consider the broad impact on the community. And also, I would recommend that the lack of proper assessment and community impact review hasn't been done either, because as far as I've read, if you were presenting the police, the ambulance services, or the fire brigade application, and it states takeaway, that simply suggests that you'll be collecting food and taking it away. It doesn't apply a restaurant or a bar. So again, then you should consider conducting site visits, surveying nearby residents, and see what the impact is. I can bet you that no one actually has done any of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any members want to respond or ask questions? No. Nick.
I think I just want to respond on the classification, because from a planning perspective, which is what and it was the planning inspectorate that granted the use of the A3 license for the takeaway. It doesn't actually distinguish between a restaurant and a takeaway. It is a food premises. So whether people are eating on site or off site is technically irrelevant from a planning point of view.
Thank you. And also the agencies involved, like the police, would have had full sight of the original application and also the appeal. Okay.
Can we have a report from these authorities whether what assessments they did carry out?
Would you like to answer that one for me?
Yeah, of course, Chair. Thank you. So set out is a set of the responsible authorities. I can't talk for how they come to their conclusion. They're obviously very separate entities to ourselves. So the responsible authorities that were consulted to on this application were the Fire Authority, the Chief Officer of Police at Thames Valley, the Environmental Health Department, the Local Enforcement Agency for Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, Trading Standards, the Children's Safeguarding Board, Public Health, Home Office Immigration, Planning and the Licensing Authority. No objection or response was received from any of them. Like I said, I can't talk about how they conclude that. I would imagine they obviously look into stuff and they do have access to the full application before they sort of come back with an answer.
Sorry, I'd like to reply again.
Please.
If I was given a piece of paper to review and it said classification a takeaway, what does that doesn't give me much assurance to how they assessed it, because I would assess a restaurant, a cafe, or bar on the basis of its titling. It's very misleading.
Thanks, Chair. I can answer this. So the email that's sent out, we don't classify premises similar to planning. So like you said, where, and I know Councillor Allen, for example, used, was it A3 earlier you referenced to the type of premises. We don't, so when a new premises licence application is received, we don't go, oh, that's an off licence, that's a takeaway or anything like that. That's not how, at the end of the day, a premises licence, it covers majority or a lot of licensable activity. The main one, or certainly in this instance, is the sale of alcohol and late night refreshment. Sorry, just sale of alcohol for this. There are other things it can cover, such as late night refreshment, live music and recorded music. So on our email that we actually sent around, looking at the consultation email now, the headline for it is notification of application for a new premises licence. So it doesn't specify that, oh, this is only a takeaway, we don't subcategorise down to that level, if that helps at all.
No, it doesn't, because whenever I'm an engineer, and I look at all the broader things before I make my decision, not just that one thing and ignore the rest. This is what you're stating, because if it just says a takeaway, if I was a member of the authorities, I would say, oh yes, they'll be collecting food and taking it away. It's just pure English, isn't it? What's the translation of a takeaway? So I can assure you that, you ask anyone randomly, they would just say, a takeaway, oh, collecting food and taking it away. That's what my concern is. It's how you may phrase it, is how you other people picture it and visualize it.
Understood. I mean, as Mr. Timmy said, we can't go into the detail of what they did to interrogate the purpose of the use of the premises, but there are processes we go through, and that's what we can't do much more than that. That's why we're here today. All right.
Again, with the original application, there were 3 traffic surveys done independently over a period of time. This is the proper authority procedures of doing matters. If the takeaway, the police or ambulance or fire would only may apply certain checks. If you classified it as specifically as a restaurant or a bar, I'm sure they would have assessed it in a different manner, a total different manner.
Okay, did you want to also speak
Thank
as
you.
well?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a question. For the responsible authorities, do they have to confirm that it was concerned at all, or does no response mean that perhaps it wasn't even looked at?
So I can only say from how our applications team deal with stuff. What I will say at the bottom of our email, what we send out, we say if you do not have any comments to make, we would appreciate a no comments response from you. So if they've got nothing to say, we do appreciate that. We would obviously always much rather that than a no response, because then it's almost treated as an acknowledgement they have looked at it. Whilst I cannot say that no response means that no one did look at it, I have broken down that you should have access to on page number, I think 3, under section 7, the responses received. So where I've written no objection, we did receive an email to actually say no objection rather than no response. And where no response is received, I have written no response, just for clarity there for members as well.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to ask any further questions? I think you've probably taken the floor a bit, haven't you? So, okay. Anything else from the objectors? Anything else from the panel? No? Okay, thank you. Well, if we're ready, we'll now move on to Mr. Burke, and would you please outline your case for granting of the application?
I'll just give you a little bit of background first. The premises has planning consent as a hot food outlet with facilities for customers to dine on the premises. And within the application, we actually stated that this is a fast food takeaway with facilities for a small number of diners on the premises, and we wish to sell alcohol to diners. That's stated within the application. Okay. Satpal has a number of other premises. He actually runs. I've written it all down here. He's got a club, two bars and 2 restaurants as well within the businesses that he runs. So he's got a wealth of experience of running not just an off license, but bars, clubs, and he's been doing that for how many years?
Near about 10 years now.
10 years, without any issues whatsoever. You know, I did actually send an email to the objectors via licensing and detailing the operating schedule and conditions offered, asking them to contact me to discuss their concerns and to see if we could come to an agreement. We also agreed a ream of additional conditions suggested by Mark Groves in the hope of avoiding a hearing. Now, with regards to the representations, Rep 1 states, with regards to prevention of public nuisance, expresses concerns of an increased risk of exposure to minors to individuals consuming alcohol or behaving in a disorderly manner while intoxicated. There are no concerns from the police. States the shop next door, which is owned by the applicant, has led to significant litter problems. There are no objections from the environmental health. There's never been any issues. There's never been any, you know, he has visits from the environmental health. He has visits from the licensing trading standards on a regular basis. There's never been any issues there. States groups gather outside the shop to drink, creating an intimidating atmosphere. There's no evidence of this. The shop is covered by CCTV cameras, and there's no evidence from any of the responsible authorities. Prevention of Crime and Disorder states that the takeaway has plans for a sizable seating area. There'll actually be a limit of at the moment 10 covers, because because there's no toilet facilities for customers, they can only limit it to 10. Protection Children from Harm again expresses concerns with regards to the number of families and children within the area. Within the application, we have comprehensive conditions with regard to protection of children from harm, and there are no objections from Children's Services. Rep 2 expresses concerns of an increase in public nuisance, disorder, no objections from any of the responsible authorities. Rep 3 refers to recent incidents in the area which are not actually relevant to this application. States the shop has been a bad neighbour, contributing to litter and attracting drunks who loiter outside. There's no evidence of this, and there's no objections from any of the responsible authorities. Rep 4 again expresses concerns with regards to children, again refers to families, expresses concerns of an increase in litter and antisocial behaviour. There are no objections from any of the responsible authorities. Refers to the number of premises already licensed in the area, which is not relevant to this application, and expresses concerns of public safety. We've actually stated within the application that adequate bins will be available. And I think within the objections, the additional information that we received tonight, there's comments about installation of additional waste bins. We've stated adequate bins will be available, and really until the business is up and running, we don't know how many of those bins we're going to need, because it's not up and running at the moment. So, you know, we can't put a number on stuff like that until the business is up and running. also, with regards to the additional stuff that we've received today, it states that the applicant has not offered any proactive safeguards to protect children. There are significant conditions within the application with regards to protection of children, and there's no concerns from child welfare. With regards to the concerns that it is going to be primarily a takeaway, and it's called Ascot Takeaway, but they have facilities for people to dine in, and that's all been approved as part of the planning consent, and that was all approved prior to us even submitting this application. And the sale of alcohol will be with food orders only. With regards to the objections, I draw your attention to the case of Thwaites v Wirral. The case in the High Court on the 6th of May 2008 has emphasised the principles laid down by the Licensing Act 2003 and its accompanying guidance, section 182, that there should be a light touch bureaucracy applied to applications for, and variations for licences, and that restrictions should only be attached to premises licences if they're necessary to promote the licensing objectives. It also highlights the fact that decisions on applications should be made on evidence and not based on speculation. And it's our application that the letters of representation, as in the case of Thwaites v Wirral, are speculative in content, and if the authority gave weight to these speculative opinions, it would in fact fail to follow section 182 and its own statement of licensing policy. That's all I'll say at the moment, but I will sum up at the end if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you. Any members, panel members initially, to ask questions? I have one. What's the thinking behind selling alcohol with takeaways? It's not something I'm that familiar with, so especially as there's an off licence just along the road. I'm just curious why you want that.
The sales of alcohol are primarily for people to, if they're sat in having a meal, they can have alcohol while they're dining. He's not actually going to sell alcohol to people to take food away. Why he's applied for the facilities for alcohol, both on and off the premises, is if somebody comes in and has a bottle of wine with a meal and doesn't finish the bottle of wine, they can actually take half of it home with them. That's the only reason that he's applied for that.
So corkage, effectively. Yeah, okay.
Basically.
Okay.
But that has to be within the application. So that's the reason that we've applied for the application the way that we have.
Okay, Councillor Allen, can you turn your microphone off? Thank you.
Can I ask how often people actually eat in the eat in rather than taking away? Is it 10%, 2%, or is the seat normally full, or is there sort of one person a night eating in?
The premises is not open. It's not even that he hasn't even finished the work on it yet. So it was
never actually stated that in the anywhere in the literature. So
it was actually a hairdresser's previously that closed about 4 years ago. 2021.
No, 22.
22 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
So it's been closed for 3 years. It's been an empty building for 3 years.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, anybody else want to ask a question?
Chair, may I just raise just a point of clarification in terms of what's just been said in respect to the application for off sales. So although the application is for on and off sales, both with food, the proposal is actually not to sell alcohol off premises, either for delivery or for collection. It's simply corkage, you could take it away.
That's correct.
And would the applicant be prepared to offer that as a condition, that there's no actual off sales?
I think that's one of the conditions that we've agreed with Mark.
Just come to the condition.
We're happy to. I have
seen there's some conditions that were submitted by yourself, but I think the last couple were crossed out in reference to off-sales deliveries and challenged age 25 policy.
Yeah,
So
because he's not going to do
that was my question. So
that's why they were crossed off.
right. So just to confirm, so there'll be no actual sales off premises, either deliveries or walk-in collections.
No.
It will simply be alcohol purchased on site with food.
With food.
If there's
on
anything
site.
left over, could be taken away.
Yes.
And you're prepared to agree a condition on that basis.
Yes.
Thank you. That clarifies.
Okay, is that your understanding as well?
Yes, as far as I'm aware, yeah, like Mr. Burke has just said, the ones that are crossed out were kept in for continuity so that members could understand that, but that was agreed that they would not be on there as Mr. Burke clarified his applicant's point of, or where he stands.
Councillor Allen?
In that case, I'm confused because item 4 in general says off sales of alcohol shall only be supplied with an ancillary to a takeaway meal. That's not
Yeah.
what you're saying.
He's stated that he's not going to offer that as a service.
Right, so we would have to vary these conditions. Okay,
Well-
so it's within our remit to vary the conditions to make
Yeah.
sure that happens. Okay, got it.
That was the point I was just trying to make. That
Yeah, I think we've agreed that is a condition, and we will enforce that if it's successful. Okay, right.
sorry, Chair. I think the objector has a question.
Oh yes.
Sorry, it's not an El Carte restaurant. The classification or class of people that will come, and if they take the bottle away, I'm sure they're not going to take it home. They'll consume. What's to stop them consuming it outside on the street, on the bench that's outside? How will you control people's behaviour?
Well, that's the same as any restaurant, surely.
Sure, I know, but then in El Carte restaurant, you would actually sit down and have a meal, and this is a takeaway. You can envisage which type of people come to a takeaway, and what consumption are likely to happen in reality. Thank you.
I'm not going to make any comment about the type of clientele I have, but I take your point. Okay.
I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. So, when was the last visit from the Environmental Authority? I apologise, I didn't know I could give evidence. Otherwise, I would have sent pictures from my morning litter pick outside my front garden.
I don't think we have an answer to that, do we? Can we get?
I wouldn't be able to answer. I'm not environmental health. It might be, if they've said that the premises.
I think the objector meant in respect to the current premises being run next door, which is being raised.
Well, I think you've already stated you have regular litter picks, but there seems to be a definite mismatch between reviewing what's happening outside currently and what you've actually experienced currently. And I don't know how we square that one, but I mean, you said you've been visited by the environmental health.
He has regular visit. Do you know when the last visit?
I've been in, I own Ascot Local Post Office and Shop since 2017. And over the period of time, year by year, we had regular trading standard visits. We had visits from the lottery people with this and mysterious shoppers underage, and we had visits from environmental health and all that. And every single time, everything has been fine. So I don't know, I had to keep the track record for this meeting, like exactly when it happened, but I'm pretty sure it must be in the council records when they make the visits.
Well, we don't have that information to hand, but clearly there is a mismatch in.
Yeah, fortunately,
understanding
there hasn't been any situations where they had to warn us or send us some sort of fines. So that way, it stays in your memory. Okay, when did we make a mistake? But everything has been gone fine over the years. We had, as I said, even during the last 2 years when this planning application was going on, from one of the objector actually said a little while ago that who from the council actually went and made some checks while the application. Definitely, we had a couple of officers from Bracknell Forest Council with their badges on, made a visit, and I was there personally to tell them, because I would say people in the area used to complain to the council that they are running the takeaway. And then we used to have a council visit saying that, oh, you can't run it without a planning. And we said we didn't. So they had to come in, they see the empty premises locked up, it's not running. And they say, okay, that's fine. So this is all I remember on top of my head, because as the end, I didn't find it that important to keep a track record of, because nothing happened. So at the end of the day, anybody can complain about anyone. It's about the time when council come in and nothing happens.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we have to be very careful about moving off the subject, which we can't really talk about antisocial behaviour as its current state. I mean, it is a problem. That's something that maybe could be taken outside by your councillor, perhaps. But what we have to do now is we have to consider what's in front of us. Yeah.
With no toilets and alcohol being served, where do you expect people to urinate after their beer?
We've the plan is how we can legally operate. There are loads and loads of restaurants similar to this with that type of numbers. You don't need a public toilet. That's why we've limited the numbers. And just for clarification, it's actually a building site at the moment in there, so there's no, he hasn't been trading.
Okay,
He's never traded it.
Yeah, we're not here to discuss that. Any other questions from you guys?
I just want to make a point that, okay, maybe this might be the case for 10 people. Most takeaways are in town centres where there's public toilets. This is fully a residential area. There are houses all around. There's a slightly small little gardeny bit in the middle with some benches, and then it's our front gardens.
No, I understand that, but as you're probably aware, Bratton was made up of a number of neighbourhoods that are designed exactly the same as Rectory Road. So, okay, if there are no more questions from you guys, are there any final questions from the applicant?
No questions, Chair. Just sum up when I can.
Well, okay, at this point, I'll ask the applicant and the objector to sum up their case. I would ask that you do not introduce any new information or any evidence at this stage, and I'll start with the objectors. Is there anything else would you like to sum up, or if you think you... Okay, it's up to you. It's not
Sorry, I've
mandatory.
never done this before. I don't know. I think I've made my points. I don't think I need to add anything.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Burke, do you want to sum up?
Thank you. Just summing up, my client has a wealth of experience in not only this type of business, but clubs, bars, all that kind of thing. There are 4 letters of objection from local residents. There are no objections from any of the responsible authorities. The site is currently a building site at the moment, and I think depending on how busy it gets, he would consider installing another toilet. And obviously, if the licence were granted, we'd change the layout by way of a minor variation. But that is something that he would consider in the future, because it is currently, it's nowhere near being open anyway. So, and I think this is a very brave decision. And you should also consider that, that in reality, he doesn't need to apply for a premises licence to be able to have people sitting in the restaurant drinking. He could have them buy alcohol from his shop next door and sit in the area of the restaurant drinking there. The consumption of alcohol is not a licensable activity, it's only the sale of alcohol. And should that be the case, he wouldn't have any of these conditions to agree with. He wouldn't have to pay an annual fee to the licensing authority every year. And he's more professional than that, and he wants to come across as being more professional than that, which is why he's done that. And for example, with regards to what I've just said, there's a Barber's in Birmingham on Cornwall Road, which is just opposite the council house in Birmingham. And you go in there and you pay £30 for a haircut, 35 quid for a haircut, and they've got spirits on optic, they've got pumps behind the counter, and you can just help yourself to drinks.
We're not in Birmingham, so...
No, but that's he could offer it as, you know, he could have a set price for food to include drinks and not have to have a license to be able to provide that as a service. I'm just pointing out little things that, you know, he wouldn't necessarily need to have submitted this application. But he's, you know, I've known him for all the time that he's been operating, and I've never had any issues with him. You know, a lot of the licensing authorities will contact me if they've got an issue with any of my clients. I'm reasonably well known up and down the country, and a lot of people will contact me and say, "Are you still dealing with so and so?" I've never had any issues with any of the premises that Satnam runs. Never had any issues whatsoever. And I think this is a very, very brave thing to do. When you know, every day we're hearing about major businesses closing, not small businesses, but major companies closing down, banks closing down, you know, and in today's climate, to be opening up a new business, you know, if that premises was left closed, everybody wants to live near to a hairdresser's or a florist and all this kind of thing. You know, nobody wants an off licence. Nobody wants an alcohol-related business on their doorstep. But you know, hairdressers and florists are just not viable businesses, and they're continually closing down. And you know, what do people want? Do they want a business that's an empty business on their parade of shops that's just not going to probably attract more problems than this ever would? I don't know whether Satnav wants to say anything.
Would you like to say anything?
Can
briefly?
I say something?
Of course you can.
First of all, my apologies if I come across a really straightforward person. I've been raised very strictly by my mother. She told me, whenever you find something wrong, please point it out. I wasn't not going to say anything, but with all due respect to one of the objectors, they said that the track record of the owner is not good. Well, I want to just point out a few things. I came from a war-torn country when I was only 4 years old. I done my education till college level. Then I started with a part-time job. Then I went into a business since 2015. I have got so far 8 off licenses. I have got 1 club in the Ascot High Street. I have got 2 other bars and restaurants. And I have grew up into all these businesses for one reason, that I've been sincere. I have been following all the rules and regulations. And I've been doing everything the way the law and the rule of this country wants me to. I've been paying my taxes, and my track record is really good. I've been very honest with this business. The only reason, as Patrick said, why I applied for a license with the takeaway, it's a very common. You go to most of the takeaways, they always have 5, 6, 7 different tables sitting there. It's not because I personally want somebody to sit there and waste a couple of hours eating a burger. No. We need to see a few things. Suppose it's a really good sunny afternoon out there, and an elderly couple comes in, they order a pizza. It's going to take 10, 15 minutes. Well, if they have a table to sit on, a chair to sit on, that's a really good impression. Secondly, a family walks past the takeaway and they want to grab some takeaways, then they have the place to sit. And you know what? It will be in the wrapper. Nowadays, you go to McDonald's, you know what? You go to any peri-peri burger, they always have some seats on the side. And if personally, I'm a family man myself. If I go out with my wife and my kids and I'm ordering a pizza and it's my day off, I've been working hard 5 days a week, and I really want to grab a pint of beer while my order is ready, what's the harm in that? If I go drunk, as one of the objectors said, if you're going to take the bottle outside and you're going to drink it on the street, unfortunately, no one can control that. There's certain boundaries. You see, if it's a personal judgment. If somebody had wine while they're having their food at my takeaway and they decide to take a little bit left over with them, and down the road if they decide to open it and drink it, tell me how the business or the police or the local enforcement or local councillors, how anybody is responsible. That's a personal judgment. No one has control over it. We will, as I said, regarding the littering in the area, we clean everything. We clean everything. If somebody buys a can of Coke, let's say if Patrick is running off license, I buy a can of Coke. I take it out, drink it, and throw it in someone's garden. How Patrick is responsible? That is very unfair if we hold him responsible as a shopkeeper. Secondly, one of the other objectors that mentioned about litter and other things, antisocial behavior. He built his house 2022-23, and once he was in the middle of construction, behind our parade of shops, there's alley and there's garages. He dumped his building materials over there. I had to take it back and put it in his garden, knock on his door and say, sir, please dispose your litter yourself. I think there where I made a mistake, and it's not working really well for me. That's how it is.
Okay, well, I think...
don't want to correct, I just want to clear this, sir.
yeah.
That's all.
I think you had your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Sorry
you very
about
much.
that. I'm so
Did you
sorry.
want to say something? Very quickly, yeah?
The applicant, he just obviously alienated me, but there was those.
Can I just stop you right there?
Sorry.
As it says, we should
Okay,
not
okay.
have cross-interrogation of people's statements. So if we had he said and she said all night long, that would not have given us anyway. But you are allowed to sum up, which you've both done, and we'll now move on. Okay? So I think we've had a fair bit of commentary there, so that brings everyone's contributions to a close. I will ask each of you to confirm that you have said all that you wish, and to say with regard to this application's representative, have you said everything you want to say?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Objectors, have you said everything you want to say? Licensing officer? Okay. All right, before we finish, thanks for confirming. Before we finish this meeting, I will ask our legal advisor, Mr. Donald Adams, to advise us of any legal issues that need to be taken into account. Donald.
Thank you, Chair. Just really pulling together the themes that I think have already been raised. So essentially, this is an application for a new premises licence under the Licensing Act for the sale of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, albeit we've mentioned the off-premise issue. So that's during the hours of 11 till 22:30 Monday to Saturday, and 11 till 2100 hours on a Sunday. As per the applicant's operating schedule and the mediated offered conditions, alcohol will only be sold on or off the premises to customers with food orders, subject to what we discussed about the condition on the off-premises sales. As set out in the agenda, the panel does have the discretion to determine the application, having due regard to all of the both written and oral representations before the panel today, including those that are not present but have made representations. The provisions of the Licensing Act and the associated hearing regulations, as has been mentioned, also have considerations of the updated Home Office guidance as issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act, also have regard to the provisions of the Council's own statement of licensing policy, also have in regard to the applicant's operating schedule as is set out in the agenda pack, together with the mandatory licensing conditions that would attach to the licence if granted, as well as any additional conditions, including those that have been offered and mediated and those that have been raised in the hearing today. You may add additional conditions where you deem that appropriate to promote the 4 licensing objectives. Essentially, we're all here today to determine this, for you to determine this application, and you must do so having regard to the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives which are set out under the Licensing Act. Those, as has been mentioned, are the prevention of crime disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. As has been said, the application is to be determined on its own merits and is evidence-based. As this is a new premises, you don't have a trading history as such of the premises to go on. You will need to consider whether granting the licence is likely to have an adverse impact on the promotion of those 4 licensing objectives, and to decide whether sufficient checks and balances can be put in place in seeking to prevent the likelihood of any of the suggested issues arising. You do have discretion, as I said, to add your own conditions, to amend conditions or to omit conditions where you state reasons for doing so. However, ultimately, any proposed conditions, as has again been said, must be proportionate, justifiable, capable of being met by the applicant, and appropriate to promoting those 4 licensing objectives. In terms of the representations, you will note, again, as has been said, that there were no representations received from any of the responsible authorities. There were 4 valid representations made by members of the public, raising concerns that the granting of this particular licence would likely undermine all 4 of the licensing objectives, and for the reasons that have been outlined by the objectors present and in writing. You'll need to consider the likelihood of the licensable activity, which is the licensing activity is the sale of alcohol on and off premises, not the food, adversely affecting the promotion of the licensing objectives, and to what degree, if any, provision to deal with such concerns is within the control of the applicant, over and above the proposed condition that's already been mentioned that alcohol would only be sold on and off premises with food orders. You will consider that the Licensing Act itself does provide scope for review and or potential revocation of any granted licence, which acts as an ultimate check and balance to any licence that's granted, or should, and should any of the complaints or issues arise attributable to the licensing activity at this premises. There are also, as again has been touched on, potential statutory provisions outside of the licensing regime itself, giving powers to the police and or other partner agencies to enforce against any such issues as nuisance, public disorder, antisocial behaviour, irrespective of whether those matters can or cannot be directly attributable to the licensing activity going on at the premises, albeit as has been raised, you are subject to resource issues and evidential gathering issues in respect of that non-licensing enforcement. Ultimately, as I stated in the agenda, you have the discretion to either grant the licence subject to the conditions you deem fit to impose, in stating reasons for doing so, to promote the 4 licensing objectives, including those conditions within the operating schedule, the mandatory conditions, the offered and mediated conditions, and any other deemed appropriate conditions that you deem fit to impose, or you have discretion to exclude from the licence any of the licensable activities sought, or you can refuse to specify the applicant as being the designated premises supervisor for in given reasons for doing so, or you can refuse the application for the premises licence entirely. So that is your options and that is your discretion, but it's evidence-based, reasons-based.
Okay, a lot to consider. Thank you very much. That concludes this panel meeting. The panel will now meet in private to make our decision. The decision we reach will be communicated in writing to all parties and published as the minutes of this meeting within 2 working days. When the panel meet to deliberate, the clerk and legal advisor should be present with them to keep a record of proceedings and advise of points of law. They will take no part in the decision itself. Does anyone have any objections to the clerk and legal advisor meeting with the panel? Okay. Thank you for attending today. The panel will now withdraw to make our decision. We will return once we are ready to communicate our decision. If you need to leave at this point, the decision will be communicated to you in writing within 2 working days. Okay, you ready?
Heather, can you let us know when the recording's back on? Yeah.
Recording, no? Okay. Okay, after careful consideration of all the information presented to the panel, both written and orally from the applicant and their representative, responsible authorities and interested party, the panel have come to the decision that the application for a new premises licence in respect of Ascot Takeaway 2 Warren Road shall be granted. In making our decision, the panel took into account the following key points, and the key points are that this is a licensing application, not a planning application. Okay. The panel also noted there have been no representations made by responsible authorities. On balance, the panel decided that granting the application would not have an adverse impact on the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, and in particular to the following objectives: prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and protection of children from harm. In summary, the panel granted the new premises licence with the following conditions, which are in addition to the mandatory conditions, and that is that no alcohol be sold as part of a takeaway order. I would ask that you note that the decision letter will be sent to you in the next 2 working days, and this letter takes precedence over the oral decision I have just given you. The panel's decision is binding upon you and the licensing authority. If you are dissatisfied with the decision of the licensing panel in this case, you may appeal against its decision to the East Berkshire Magistrates Court. Thank you all for attending. That concludes this meeting.